The main theater of the U-boat offensive was the North Atlantic, but U-boats had actually operated in every ocean in the world. Although U-boats operating in the Far East is less well known, but it involved a large number of boats, and it was a unique example of a German-Japanese cooperation during World War II. German records indicate that discussion for a German U-boat base in Asia had begun as early as August of 1942. The base was intended for the support of U-boats operating in the Indian Ocean. But why was Germany interested in an Asian base? Well, one of the reasons was due to necessity. Before the German invasion of the Soviet Union, land and air transportation between Germany and Japan was possible. The two allies often seek to exchange knowledge and raw materials. In addition, the two nations were also interested in each other's latest military hardware, including prototypes of the latest weapons and blueprints. After the invasion, the only practical means of exchange was by sea. Initially, this was met by surface blockade runners, but later a proposal was put forth by Admiral Dönitz in early 1943 to use submarines for transport purposes. In order to provision for U-boats traversing the Indian Ocean, an eastern base was clearly required. Another reason for German interest in an eastern base seems to suggest that while the Atlantic campaign was going well for the Germans, U-boat operations gradually extended down to the Cape of Good Hope. Finally, with the collapse of the Atlantic campaign in May of 1943, U-boats needed to be on the offensive elsewhere, and with that, U-boats were dispatched to their Far Eastern bases from the middle of 1943 to undertake offensive operations in the Indian Ocean. Finally, other indications suggest that the Japanese themselves had on several occasions requested for German U-boats to operate in the Indian Ocean. First, the German Navy viewed the proposal as an unnecessary diversion from the Atlantic campaign, but with the collapse of the Atlantic campaign, the approval was finally given. The motivation for German interest in the Far East is likely due to a combination of these factors. In February of 1943, a strategic decision was made to send the first wave of submarines to the Far East. Barely a month later, in March of 1943, U-178 departed from France to the Indian Ocean. She was to sail to Malaya to set up an U-boat base there. After having replenished from a surface tanker in the Indian Ocean, the U-boat arrived in Penang in the Malayan Peninsula in August of 1943. Her captain, Wilhelm Dommesch, became the first commander of the German U-boat base in Asia and the German commander of the theater as well. Gruppe Monsun, or Gruppe Monsun, was the first wave of German U-boats to be dispatched to the Far East. A group of 9 Type 9Cs and 2 Type 9D submarines set sail from Europe in mid-1943. The limited range of the boats meant that they had to be refueled during the outbound journey and were to arrive in their operation zones only in September of 1943, right after the monsoon season, thus the name given to the operating boats. The refueling difficulties incurred by Gruppe Monsun illustrate just how complicated and hazardous mid-ocean replenishment could be. In the plan, 2 mid-ocean replenishments were necessary. The first was scheduled to be conducted by U-462, a Type 14 U-tanker at a location east of St. Paul's Rock of the Brazilian coast in the South Atlantic. The group would then sail to Mauritius in the Indian Ocean for a second replenishment by a surface tanker. Thereafter, they were to take up offensive operations in the Arabian Sea before sailing to the U-boat base in Penang for replenishment. From then on, they were to be based in Penang, where they could sortie against Allied shipping in the Indian Ocean. Penang, situated in the west coast of the Malaya Peninsula, was under German occupation and was selected as the main U-boat base. The coordination of German and Japanese warfare in the Indian Ocean started in the spring of 1943, and there were several issues. For example, the U-boat base at Penang had initially no docks. The communication system was relatively good. The base had an effective radio station. Most of the equipment was made in Japan. This radio station was in constant communication with the station of the German embassy in Tokyo, which also dealt with traffic to the German naval staff. Later, even direct communication with the radio station in Germany was possible, but according to the season and time of day, it was sometimes very difficult to make the connection. Compared with the number of personnel at the home bases, this base was inadequately staffed. There were some 50 German soldiers employed almost entirely in administrative duties and communications. In addition, there were a few civilian employees as well. A period not to exceed 2 months was allotted for repair, loading, and recreation of the crew, but this schedule could never be kept. The serious wear and tear of operations in the tropics necessitated extensive repairs to preserve these boats. The whole crew had to share in the work, and at times this proved to be a greater physical strain than the combat patrol itself. It is amazing to see how few resources the Japanese had at their disposal to execute the most elementary assignments of war. Japan had spent so much energy on her one enormous effort to conquer the southern area that she was incapable of carrying out further large-scale offensive operations. The Japanese Navy did appear in Southeast Asia, but they had almost no sea or air patrols to defend the offshore waters. The Navy was powerless to stop the operations of numerous Allied submarines of the bases by employing suitable submarine chasers, let alone provide forces for any planned anti-submarine operations on the scale understood by German U-boat commanders. The Japanese were not even able to provide efficient escort forces for their inward and outward bound German U-boats. As a result, at least 5 German boats were lost to enemy submarines in offshore waters. It is also remarkable that neither the German U-boat command nor the Japanese officers were concerned in supplying the German U-boats with accurate reports on the enemy, their strength, their air and submarine bases, and convoy routes. Each U-boat had therefore to feel her way carefully into her operational area, thereby losing much time. Enemy merchant ships generally proceeded singly in the entire operational area of the Indian Ocean. Convoy traffic was observed only in areas of concentrated traffic, for example in the Gulf of Suez. Therefore, most of the ships sunk had been proceeding alone. To find these individual ships in the wide ocean where traffic was sparse was a task requiring patience and instinct. Up to the end of 1943, enemy defenses were weak. They had only a few submarine chasers and destroyers off the main bases and aircraft close to the coast. It was not until 1944 that the enemy combated the U-boats by widely dispersing their traffic and considerably increasing the aircraft employed on anti-submarine operations. So the German U-boat commanders had the impression that the enemy had a very good knowledge of the U-boat's location, supply points, dates of putting in and out, approach and outward routes, and movement between the bases. In conclusion, German U-boat warfare in the East Asia was successful. According to the reports of the boats, some 1,760 ships, totaling about 1 million gross registered tons, were sunk, most of them during their early operations. But German losses were also high. Of the 45 U-boats sent out from Europe at various times, 34 boats, so 76%, were lost up to the day of the capitulation. 4 boats were interned by the Japanese in their East Asia bases, 4 returned to their home bases, and 3 surrendered at sea or in a port in western France. Of the boats sunk, only parts of the crews of the 8 boats were rescued. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and to make sure you don't miss my future work, please make sure you're subscribed to my channel and press the bell notification button. Thank you, and see you in the next video.